right, thank you for staying with the State of the Nation. We'll take your feedback in just a bit. At Trevor Mbija to Citizen TV Kenya. Use the hashtag Daybreak. My guest is still with me. His Excellency Kimani Wamatangi, Kiambu Governor, Dr. Kuru Okot, Party Leader, Third Way Alliance, and Honorable John Mbadi, nominated MP and also ODM Chair. Now, Wamatangi, we're coming to you on these issues around borrowing. Mbadi says we're still borrowing the same way we were borrowing and nothing has changed. And this plane has taken off. It's just facing.
Well, by the way, Trevor, when I referred to take-off time, and I'm sure at least you've been lucky to fly quite a few times, and so has all my friends here. When you talk about take-off time, you're not just talking about that time when the aircraft is revving up. You've flown, and once you buckle up and you take off, it takes a while before you're told, now free your safety belt. That's called take-off time. Doesn't mean that you're not in there. You're in there. But for somebody to ask you when you are lifting up, whether you're going to the right direction, that answer cannot be conclusive. That's what I simply said, that it's preparation time. We are yet to unbuckle and say now we can engage autopilot because we have firmly taken direction. We know where the aircraft is headed with all our people on board. But let me just address two issues. Number one, because my brother, Daktari Okot, is a constitutional lawyer who is very well versed with these issues, and Mbadi has served for many years as a member of Parliament. We need to inform Kenyans well that indeed, at any one time when there's a proposal of ideas, thoughts, and plans gathered from many sources, that is what is normally put together to be called a bill to be tabled for debate. It is not an act. And so when we are talking about the finance bill, we are talking about a bill that is not law. And moreover, it is important for our people to know that indeed finance bills, most of the time in Parliament, is an omnibus bill. It carries a lot of thoughts and plans and ideas from so many sources. And then they are put on the table for discussion. And we have members of Parliament in that house from all places. And what that requires is that we have the thoughts of Mbadi, we have the thoughts of the other people put there. They have been given the platform in law to make their thoughts known and their ideas affirmed in the voting that they will vote. And it is only because at the end of the day, once they are voted, the majority would win if majority of them who represent Kenyans think that this is wrong, they'll shoot it down. They think that idea is not good for our people, they'll bring it down. What they think is good.
From your side, I've already said it's going to pass without a comma or a full.
That is talk. The action, Trevor, is indeed what they will do when they discuss, and finally the product will be what the majority of the members of Parliament will think is right. That's what will pass, and they represent the majority of the people. But having said that, because I just wanted to clear Kenyans' minds that once you have that kind of bill on the floor, does not mean that it has become fully a law in every suggestion that it makes. It is also important to address this thing of the cost of living, because like I said, I don't think there is anyone, including the president, who is in denial that times are hard, that Kenyans are suffering, that a solution is required, and that people must do things extraordinarily differently from the way they were being done before. That is very clear to everybody. Actually, as I sit in Kiambu, this is the reality I face every single day when I see the way our people are suffering. And I have to bring my mind to align with those realities and offer solutions. I believe, to be fair, Trevor, if you look and listen to what people are saying right now on ground, amidst all those problems, number one, in my county, I have to keep on explaining to people, why is it that we were building some roads called Mau Mau, we were building another road where, and many other roads that were going to other places, but for the time being, they have temporarily halted until a better way of funding them has been found. Why? I've been explaining that every day, that the decisions of this government is not to do things the way they were being done before. So we are not going to run to China and tell them, give us money to put on the table and continue to fund the problem, and we seem like we are giving a solution by building a road that eventually makes people suffer more than they gain. And so we've agreed, and this is what we are telling our people. Just hang on in a little bit as solutions are found as to how are we going to get funding now in a more sustainable way and then get on with our development. I know that as has been said by my two colleagues here, it is a hard sell to tell Kenyans right now that freedom is coming tomorrow. It may not be tomorrow, it may be the day after tomorrow. But how do we get to resolve this and tell the people, our people, the truth? Reality is that once we walk this journey together with our people during this hard time, we can only promise our people that it is going to be better because we know truly in our hearts we are doing the right things.
Except
right now.
We don't know when.
You know, it's not that we don't know when. We know it is soon and very soon. In another 1 year, then you find that things will have started to stabilize. I heard somebody refer to, we gave timelines. You said that within this time, these are going to happen.
I'm just documenting,
those timelines are very clear in everybody's mind. Actually, when I campaigned, I had a manifesto myself, which also had timelines. I told my people, we are going to do this, we are going to do that, and we are now firmly in the seat. So you get things to roll out, notwithstanding that there will be headwinds when you start to move. You find that something crops up that you had not planned for. This crops up, but do you keep your focus? Do you keep determined? Do you continue on that direction? And I like what we've said here before, because my two brothers here have continuously referred to the performance of the administration that was led by President Kibaki. Why is it wrong then to refer to then some of the failures of the administration that took after Kibaki? Because, you know, if we had continued with what Kibaki did, which is something that's universally agreed amongst Kenyans, then we would not be talking about what we are talking now. So if Kibaki did so well at that particular time, if things were so right at that Kibaki time, then what happened in between that now we are talking the way we are talking because of that hiatus of 10 years? It means that there were things that started to be done differently and wrongly. Okay. Now what we are saying is that clearly, and I speak this with a lot of clarity of mind, because I've sat on that seat, although my jurisdiction is small in Kiambu, but it is very similar. It is very, very similar. I went in there and I found things that had been done very wrongly by three administrations that were prior to mine. Some of them that you can't even believe that somebody with the mandate and the responsibility to do right to his people would put in place in a county like Kiambu. Okay. But I have to get things back on track, work through that hard time, and make sure that we deliver our people. All right. And that's what we're doing. All right. I can relate very clearly with what the president is going through.
Dr. Guru,
you see, Trevor,
for president.
Yes, I did, and I will tell you what I would have done differently. But before that, you know, when I listened to Governor Wamatangi, you know, he's a very intelligent person, and he comes out, he's so eloquent. The only problem, I think, with Governor Wamatangi is being defending this administration. I think, Governor, if we want to move forward as a country, and we want to support government to succeed, everyone wants to do that. Let's stop making apologies for government. Let's stop saying that, there are past problems. The difference between this administration and why we keep on referring to Kibaki's administration, Kibaki did not get stuck up on the fact that he inherited the Moi regime. He went to work. He did not keep on reminding us that, Moi did this, Moi did that. Even him, he's not talking about the failures of the previous governors in Kiambu. He is now sitting and addressing those problems. That is the trajectory, Governor, we want to see with this administration. The less you talk about Uhuru Kenyatta and his administration, the more hope you give us to Kenyans that actually you are doing something about it. And you know, I like the analogy you use of a plane taking off. You see, any experienced pilot, will tell you that they have already studied the weather patterns. that they know that by certain time, in fact, they even give us sometimes a warning that, as we take off, they'll be a bit bumpy, but it will be okay. So there is that trajectory. So, but you people are still stuck on boarding. We are still at the gate. We are boarding the plane. We have not taken off, Governor. And in that takeoff, So, but you ask me a fundamental question. What would I have done different if I was the President of the Republic of Kenya? There are many things, Trevor, I would have done. First of all, Mheshimiwa Mbadi, as an accountant and economist, will advise us better. Basic things anyone could do if you inherit a certain situation. And let me use again this analogy. Hopefully now we can move away from the idea of a plane taking off. If I want to go to shop, I know my budget monthly, that my budget is probably 1,000 Kenya shillings. I'm not going to pick goods of 2,000 or 3,000. I will immediately apply some austerity measures. I may probably not even buy a certain type of unga. I will probably go to that goro in the village. And that I will probably buy sukuma wiki, or I can buy eggs. So seeing some austerity measures being applied is something always desirable, especially when you're saying the state of the economy is this bad. Now, we also know the campaign promises that President William Ruto gave to the people of Kenya. One, among many of them, was that I will run as a lean government. But the first thing that we saw was an expanded government that comes with a huge expenditure, a recurrent expenditure. Now, that is not somebody who is actually trying to address the problem. Borrowing was one of those issues. Creation of job opportunities. I will try to industrialize. All of us, I'm sure, we are very lucky. We have traveled in this country. We have held public positions. And I can tell you, Trevor, there is an economic opportunity in each and every part of this country. Even some of the remotest parts of this country, there is an economic opportunity. But we are not seeing any efforts to industrialize those economic opportunities. For example, most of the meat that people consume in this city of Nairobi, 80% of it comes from the ASAL regions. Why is it that we cannot industrialize meat production and even do value addition, for example? Why should we go to Turkey to buy shoes, belts, China, buttons, whatever? These are all economic opportunities. Migori has gold. Kakamega, the same thing. Fishing in Homa Bay, where Mheshimiwa comes from. We have not really industrialized that. We can create economic opportunities in each and every part of the republic of this country. And let me tell you, we will revolutionize this country.
Okay.
That is not happening. Yeah. Instead, we're just hearing blame game, blame game, blame game.
Okay. Yeah. Honorable Mbadi, there's action. Let's talk about now a bit of corruption happening here and there. Because one,
yes,
we've seen a bit of moves being done by the president. KEMSA, there was drama, the entire board was sent home, the CEO has been suspended. Now we know the circulation of bad sugar, Njiraini and 26 others have been sent home. And isn't this action in the right direction?
I don't know where to start from, because I wanted to say something about what needs to be done.
Let's start with that first.
Mm-hmm. You see, again, I'll take you back to the plane taking off, although now to move away from that. See, if the plane has taken off, and we know we are going to Kisumu, and the pilot has announced that we are taking off, and the ladies in the cabin, that we are heading to Kisumu, Moi International Airport. And then we are vast with the geography of Kenya, and I see the plane heading to Mombasa. I will not just keep quiet. Where are we going? Because the direction we are taking is completely opposite where we were headed to. Yeah. So Wamatangi should not stop us from questioning where this plane is taking us. Because if we really wanted to reduce the cost of living, then we wouldn't be increasing the prices of petroleum products, because that is exactly what we are going to do. Remember when President Ruto campaigned, he castigated the 8%, yes, which was introduced as VAT on petroleum products, which was a negotiated percentage. Uhuru wanted 16%. As in ODM insisted that if you have to allow VAT, it must be not more than 8%. That is how we ended up with 8%. Now, Ruto said that 8% is too much, we'll remove it. What has he done? He is proposing to move it to 16%. And Wamatangi, Governor, kindly, we are, don't just say that this is a finance bill and it's a bill in Parliament. It is Kenya Kwanza's intention. And they have clearly stated that this is their intention to do 1, 2, 3. Now, if I were to handle the economy as it is today, my target would be the cost of living. That should be the target of any serious government at the moment. That is the problems that Kenyans face. The single most important agenda should be the cost of living. And how do you address it? Come up with policies that would help. They talked about subsidizing production. Well and good. But show it in practice by first. There's no major item in production as petroleum in this country. Fuel. Reduce it. We cannot be buying fuel at 182. In fact, it's going to go to over 190 shillings. When I was just in America a few days ago, and price per liter is 127 shillings. In a developed world where even per capita income is way above probably even my income, and I'm considered one of the most comfortable Kenyans. So that is something that needs to be addressed. We need to come up with policies in the bill that would help production, agricultural production, cheaper. But what are we seeing in the finance bill? The opposite. I have told you about the amendments to the schedules. It is going to make the cost of production more expensive. And even if we have to subsidize fertilizer, we are subsidizing it with taxpayers' money. So we cannot increase the price of fertilizer to subsidize it. That is irresponsible economics, in my view. This issue of housing, why does the government want to build houses? Why can't you buy land instead? Do roads. Come to Homa Bay, for example. There are so many people, including Buddy, who would want to invest in Homa Bay. But provide land somewhere in Homa Bay, make the roads to that place, provide water to that place, sewage system, give us electricity, Wi-Fi, and then ask for an arrangement, an MOU with me, and insist that you must produce cheaper houses at this cost, and every month you charge people not more than, say, 3,000 shillings for a period of at least 10. It is 10 years. It is put in the contract. So we have other ways, instead of now going to the Kenyan public and raiding our pockets and telling every employee that you must contribute 3% of your basic salary, which is not even there. Most of these people have committed their salary. You are telling them to release another 3%, another 2.7% is being released to NHIF. You are basically impoverishing the people who are working class in this country because you want to borrow money from them illegally. In fact, this is money that is going to be borrowed illegally. You put this money for 7 years. Trevor, you have no say on your money. For 7 years is when, if you are not entitled to a house, then you can be refunded the money. No one talks about interest. Who told the president that Kenyans should just be comfortable that we give you our money to run your expensive government, which Wakili Okot here referred to? Who told him to employ those CSS at our expense? So that is something that I would not agree to. MSMEs, what are you doing to help them? This hustler fund is a sham. This is another cartel, another scandal.
It's a pyramid.
It is going to really hit hard. I hope the auditor will do a good job and bring a report on this hustler fund. It is completely useless. You are giving money that cannot help anybody. Please come up with a fund that can help the micro, small, and medium enterprises, because that is where that is how this economy can grow. But now you asked me about the fight against corruption. We have talked a number of times about corruption. We are losing resources in this country. The former President Uhuru talked about 2 billion per day. I think it's even more. We are no longer talking about the 10%. In this country, the least cut that you'd give government officials is 30%. So in other places, it's upwards of 50%. Beginning with counties where Senator Wamatangi is one of the governors. Yes, I am sure he knows that even in Kiambu, there's a lot of corruption. It is up here.
Well, let's just call it what it is, theft.
It is theft of public funds, actually. It's plunder of resources.
We cannot trace it even to our mother tongues.
Yes. So any effort to deter it would be appreciated. But what we hear is not exactly what is being fed to the public. Like now the case of the health ministry. It is the donors who have put a condition. When they got wind that there is corruption in they said if that is not addressed, they are going to cut the funding for malaria. And that is why you see now people running helter-skelter. PS is being sacked here. The KEMSA board chair is sent home. Other people are being appointed. You don't even know how they have been, the appointments have been arrived at. You hear them now talking, we are fighting corruption. We want a structured way of fighting corruption. This haphazard way is what Uhuru did, and which they were condemning. Yeah, the other day, remember, there was Kamata Friday, which to some extent deterred some people from involving in corruption. But where did it end? The DPP came, the same DPP who has now been rewarded with heading our NIS, someone who has admitted failure, is now the one who is going to head a very important institution called National Intelligence Service, that which is supposed to get all the information about us, including when we are in our bedrooms. Now you are giving it to an individual, my friend, who had accepted that he failed as a DPP. Anyway.
Can I finish? I'll come to.
No, actually, I'm done. I want them also to come in.
Before Governor Matangi responds, because I know you will defend government, I want to say this. Just to summarize what Mheshimiwa said. You know, this government is not getting its priorities right. That's, I think, in a nutshell, what Mheshimiwa Mbadi has pointed out. Who told them that Kenyans have a problem of housing? You know, even if you do the maths, Governor, assuming somebody is earning 100,000 Kenya shillings, that is only 3,000. And what kind of housing are you going to? So the priorities...
And it is capped to 2,500.
2,500. Yes. So the priorities are completely wrong. Now, in terms of fighting corruption, to be honest with you, you know, when we promoted the Punguza Mizigo, and you hosted me a couple of times, we had suggested that we introduce a department called Forensic Auditing Department in the Auditor General's office. Forensic auditing is basically the collection of evidence for purposes of criminal prosecution and investigation. And we put in timelines that let's amend the Constitution and entrench those provisions in the Constitution so that the first person to receive the Auditor General report with a forensic report inbuilt in it should be the DPP. Within 30 days, we put in timeline, within 30 days, prosecution. Because you see, this is not rocket science. You said you will build a road. Money was allocated. We have not seen that road. You will build a school. We have not seen that school. Hospital. What have you done? You have stolen. And that's why we need to demystify this talk of corruption in our country and call it what it is. Because in Turkana, I can easily relate when I say somebody is a thief. In the Luo, you will say what? Jaku. Yeah? So that is closer home. Yeah? That this person has actually stolen. But you know, when you try to sanitize it, call it corruption. It becomes so difficult.
Can I correct this narrative? Because, you know, I think there's some areas. And one of the things that we come to this table with, I believe, you know, like always, and I'm glad that my neighbor here is a lawyer. This gentleman here, my good friend, is a distinguished lawmaker. One of the principles in law is come to the table with clean hands. And I believe that's how we did. And that's what we should always do. And at the level...
It's called the principle of equity. Who comes to court must come with clean hands.
And you know... ourselves at this level of engagement with a presidential candidate and, you know, a leader like Mbadi and a potential president, it must be fully devoid of the other baggage of where we were yesterday in political alignments and whatever, and now firmly look into the future and how we can resolve issues. That's why I would struggle a lot to forgive Mbadi, but I will. You know, when I hear that he would bastardize the Hustler Fund and not in equal measure bastardize and devilize Fuliza. But his mouth has been shut for all the times when Kenyans have suffered. And you know, why Kenyans went to Fuliza is because they had no option. They had no alternative. But a man must live it. A man must do what a man must do. Yeah. Now, you have a family. Here you have the kind of circumstances that you have. You must put bread on the table. So what did Kenyans resort to doing? Going to borrow 1,000 bob for a day and repay it 3 times. in schemes like Fuliza. But when you have Hustler Fund, then it is quickly and eloquently labeled as scam by my friends. That, in my view, is absolute hypocrisy. What we would be saying here is, yes, you have come up with a good thought of, you have seen that there is a dire need, that Kenyans, you remember we debated that one morning here, and the company that gives these loans, Safaricom, they had reported that they loan about, I think it was 17 billion a day. That tells you about the magnitude of the problem that Kenyans are having, for them to go for that kind of funding when it is so punitive. What I would be wanting to hear from Bandi is saying, yes, you came with this concept, it requires improvement, and you would improve it this way, but at least have those tens of millions of people who are borrowing daily having access to funds to give them a living. Number two, and this I would relate to my own personal experience. When I went into government there in Kiambu, I realized that there are so many investments that have been done by government itself using taxpayers' money, which are completely idle and exploited, and which would result in a better day and a better way and a better economy for the county. So what do? I look at how departments have been structured, and I decide you have a department here that has got 6 directorates, which have no one to man them but one person. So what do you do logically? As somebody who knows that you need to roll out and have capable people to manage, you isolate those directorates, get capable people to sit and superintend over them and give services. Yeah. So what does it tell you if just somebody looking from the sides just wants to pass quick judgment, who say, oh, this guy is just expanding government? That's not so. What you do is you assess the need. You know that government has invested in this particular department or ministry for hundreds of years in billions, but it has laid idle there. You know, like in my county, I went there and I found that you go into one department, it has got like 6 directorates with one guy sitting over them. So somebody who is in charge of veterinary services is also supposed to be in charge of hospitals, and is also supposed to be in charge of vaccinations, is supposed to be in charge of roads. That cannot work. You have to put right people. So if my detractor was standing there, he would say, oh, this guy is just expanding government. I'll give a very good example, my 2 friends have reached the threshold of actually experiencing it, and they have first knowledge about it. The world famous leader of Singapore, Lee Kuan Yew, when he became president, one of the things that he said, contrary which would be said in Kenya today, you would get beaten in the street for saying it. He said that if you continue to hire cheap people and pay them cheap salaries to be your ministers and cabinet to lead your country, then you're going to end up with a cheap government. And so he advocated fully that have capable people who are paid properly, and they will give you a good government. Okay. That is why Singapore is a world leader. Now I want to mirror
meritocracy in a point,
absolutely,
which is not being applied.
But I want to mirror this. I'm not saying that people should be paid more, but what I'm saying is that when you talk about, for example, what has been happening in the arena of what is the president talking about, government expenditure related to public servants. He said it loudly, and I remember even him coming to our sitting and saying it. He said it even on national TV. He does not want to see a minister or a governor or anyone walking around foreign nations there with having 50 people in tow, one carrying a briefcase, other papers or whatever. Restrictions, even including members of county assembly, but we'll come to that debate because it is on the front page. What do I want to close with? I want to close with a question to my brother Mbadi, because I've had something that I want to deal with you even outside this, so that we can have a good sober debate. I want to know whether in your mind you resonate with the challenges of why we have had Kibera expanding and not diminishing. I want to hear what your thoughts are as to why we have Huruma, we have Mathare expanding and not diminishing. So when we again train our gun, and my friend Mbadi, because you widely traveled, Dr. Ukot, you have been to Turkey, and you have seen where the remnants of the Kurdish community first came to live in Turkey, where they were living in shanties, now they live in absolutely good, affordable houses. I know you have been to, you have related well to countries like Singapore, where these people were living the worst form of life before. Now they're living in good places. And you know what, Trevor, and this we must say to our people. Yes, there requires to be a clear distinction. How do you leave the trading community and business community doing what they do profitably to build houses? But how do you address the question of that we have known that there are people who absolutely in the current circumstances have no hope for whatsoever that they would ever own a decent home in where they live in Nairobi? That's why men have been born in Kibera, sired children in Kibera, died in Kibera, and you have had their children grow in Kibera, die in Kibera, and they're now in the 4th generation. What hope, what solution are you saying you're going to give to those people that one day that they can be the body of tomorrow and say that they can also live in a good house? And so with all the challenges that would talk about affordable housing, let us at least own up to one thing, that we have a solution we owe to the people of this country, who are the majority, that the number of people who live in Westlands and Lavington and other places is merely not even an eighth of the total of us who live in all those slum villages. Okay. Now, the solutions we have offered for the last 50 years as an independent country has not afforded those people a decent place they can call home. So whatever has to be done, and Mbadi, with all the things that have been said, I want to put it on record that I have gone and studied and seen. Indeed, those that never had this hope in those countries that I've mentioned were put together. They were given a direction, including that contribution that we are bastardizing, and eventually somebody gets to own a home. Okay. What we would be talking about is how do we remedy? What better thing can we do? But let us realize that that is the solution we must give, and at least there is a direction that we can only improve on.
All right.
You know, quickly, Mheshimiwa Governor Matangi is talking about Fulizas and the rest, but he's also not telling us who owns Fuliza, because some of these Fulizas, some of these financial schemes are actually owned by individuals in high political power and actually exploiting the poor.
Absolutely.
But having said that, you know, I'm happy that you're using the example of Singapore. And this is a very tired example we always use. We go back to the 1960s. In the 1960s, you say that we're actually at par or even better than the tiger economies of Singapore, Malaysia, and the rest. We even lent them some money at that time. But then the fundamental question, Trevor, which Governor Matangi, I hope, could answer, is where did we go wrong? Because Lee Kuan Yew was very strategic and specific where he wants to take his country. He talked of meritocracy in government, and he punished government officials who will travel with a businessman. As soon as you land it back into Singapore, you are fired and you are sent to jail. He brought in discipline in government. He did not go largesse like the way we are going today. So while we use the example of Singapore, but let's also emulate the kind of leadership Lee Kuan Yew presented to his country. You know, ours is the opposite. We are not punishing thieves of public money. We keep on rewarding them. Look at, for example, the chief administrative secretaries that this administration is defending. These are failed politicians, some of them with many cases. As soon as this administration came into power, people who had been charged of having siphoned, failed to pay taxes, are the ones who are being rewarded. So what example is that? We cannot even now talk about Singapore in the context of Kenya today. You know, the kind of leadership that we have, to be honest with you, has failed to learn from anything in the past. Instead, we keep on benchmarking with other countries. And by the way, Mheshimiwa Matangi, you say, yes, we are not going to China anymore. But why are we running to America and Europe? You know, things are just shifting. You know, we are pretending now, we don't want Chinese debts, but we are under capture. I know they will never accept this. We are under capture from the Western world today as a country. That's why you can see IMF is back. We're actually being taken back to the IMF time. In fact, I'm scared we might go back to structural adjustment programs because of these two twin Washington institutions. And this is where William Ruto is actually taking this kind of, we keep on saying, yes, we've taken off. But we're seeing the direction we are taking. We are not going to Turkana. You're telling me you want to land me in Lodwar, in our capital of our county, Turkana, but you're taking me to Mombasa. I have to protest.
But still, Dr. Okot, are we facing a systems failure of some sorts? Because imagine a situation where you said austerity measures, then it proposed in the finance bill is cut down the budget for legislature, cut down the budget for executive. Who would pass that in parliament knowing that it's the legislators themselves who will do it? Even right now, we can see MCAs are suspending sittings to demand pay rise. They're saying there's a go-slow. Members of county assemblies have announced a suspension of plenary sittings across the 47 counties over failure by government to meet their demands, which includes salary increment and reinstatement of sitting allowances. So it means even the governors themselves then will be held at ransom if they pass what they call the CIDP, County Integrated Development Plan, or even the budgets there. They will not be passed.
You know,
is it a system structure?
Trevor, system is an abstract reality. If you deconstruct what a system is, you have to go down to say, in Kiambu there's a system, but we have Governor Matangi who is in charge. You know, if the system is wrong, it's about people with responsibility, people who are supposed to be accountable. There's a man called Anko who wrote a book called Lords of Poverty. And in that book, he asks a fundamental question. Why is it that every American dollar comes with 20 Americans? You know, and he was talking about aid. So what I think we have failed to do in this country, especially from the very top, is to follow the shilling, to make sure that the system, for example, the billions of money that comes to counties such as ours, like Turkana County where I come from, we've received billions and billions of money, but people are still struggling with basic things like water, you know, road security. So if you look at the three arms of government, and I'm happy all my friends here have been legislators, you have parliament that actually passes, for example, now if this bill is going to become into an act, to become a law, they pass that law. Then there is the executive that we expect to now enforce that law. And if things go wrong, we go to the judiciary and adjudicate our conflicts, whatever the case is. What is failing this country is actually the executive arm of government. But now it has also gone into the legislature. I don't see the legislators anymore actually calling government to account, properly represent the people who gave them that mandate. Representation in Kenya today has become so hopeless, to be honest. I keep saying, and I'm sorry, you know, I'm not being disrespectful, but the kind of quality of parliament we have today is sokojinga. You know, representation is so poor. In fact, we don't even know anymore who our members of parliament are. I keep giving an example of back in the days in Kanu. I think there's a time I watched a debate between Raila Odinga and William Ruto in parliament. It was a very robust debate back in the days. And you'll remember people like Bilo Kero as then the shadow minister for finance at that time. We could remember them. We could see quality. We could see people questioning why things are not going wrong, even though at that time we used to say we're in a dictatorship under the Moi regime. So let's not blame on the system. The systems are people. If you look at KEMSA are systems, but a system alone cannot still siphon billions. It's individuals who are actually siphoning these billions of money. And these billions of money find themselves in political campaigns. So the bad political culture is actually sustaining theft of public resources, of money. And there is no follow-up from those with responsibility.
All right.
For me today, yes, William Ruto has taken a very positive step in dismantling that board, but that should not be it. That should not be the end. I want to see people being charged. I want to see evidence being presented, and I want to see people go to jail and refund that money or the assets repossessed.
All right. But can we depend on Parliament to defend the people?
I don't think so. You see,
That's very honest.
we have seen previously how Parliament has behaved, and you can see the signs already when members of Parliament go congregate and start saying, my duty is to make sure that government programs succeed regardless. And then the whip is, well, I know it's the government whip, is assuring the president that the finance bill will pass without even a comma being changed. So, and then we have been engaging. We have a platform for the 13th Parliament, and I see the way some of our colleagues reason. It is pathetic. A lot of times we tend to think or we imagine that when you are elected on a party in the ticket of a party which is ruling, then that you are in government, which is complete fallacy. In fact, many of them will realize that they may finish their or complete their 5-year term without receiving anything again from the so-called government, apart from the CDF and Kera money, which comes automatically. But you see, Honorable Governor Wamatangi said something about Singapore and the former president, who all of us appreciate was a great leader. And I don't think it just happened. He is a great leader, and he chose to lead his country in that direction. And he talked about hiring cheap people. What he meant was get quality and reward it.
Sure.
In Kenya, I don't think that anyone can defend that that is what has happened previously or even currently. Have we hired the right people?
No.
And are we, whether we remunerate them well, we are hiring the wrong people and remunerating well. If you look at even the CASs and the salary that has been proposed that they earn, look at the caliber of the people who have been picked. Even if we wanted really to create that position, are the people we have picked the right people for those positions? I am the chair of Public Accounts Committee, and I see many PSs appear before us. And without even being personal, some of them you ask yourself, really, was this the quality that we could find in this country? When very qualified and competent people are out there doing other things, probably not as beneficial to us as they would if there were PSs in this government. Governor has talked about planning and Kibera expanding. No one would support slums. No one would support shanties. We all want decent housing. And in fact, it is in the Constitution. I think it is Article 43, if I'm not wrong. But you see, Governor, where we disagree is the method of eliminating or reducing these slums and shanties. You've talked about Singapore and how it is planned. But I would also give you another example. One of the best planned cities in the world is Brasilia, in Brazil. Actually, the president who created Brasilia was, I'm told, voted out because people were very angry with him that he was moving people from Rio de Janeiro to somewhere which was basically a desert. But I have been to Brasilia, and it is well planned and structured. But what the government did was not to build houses for people. What the government did was to provide facilities for people to invest and sign contracts with private investors so that they don't exploit the public. Kenyans, if we are all employed, earning some salary, we can afford decent housing. We can pay reasonable rates unless some unscrupulous business people are allowed to exploit us. Yeah. Create policies that would help provide housing to our people. But I have no problem if Kenya Kwanza would have recommended that those who are voluntarily willing to contribute to housing development fund would be encouraged by government encouraging employers to also commit a similar amount of what the employees, if it was made optional, I would not have a problem. But when you bring Clause 76 and make it mandatory, and you amend the Employment Act, and you're telling even somebody who does not need a house that you must contribute to that housing. And the argument that I hear people talking about is that, why don't you think about other Kenyans? Why should I be forced?
It a moral argument.
Yes, a moral argument. Why should I be forced to think about other Kenyans when you are stealing their money? You yourself, the person who is telling me to think about other Kenyans. Governor, one of the reasons why MCAs are looking for more money, it is because every weekend they are seeing governors withdrawing petty cash in millions. And so they know the money is there. You cannot tell them that there is no money to pay MCAs when these people, we know very well, Imprest is supposed to only meet simple purchases, things that would help the office run. I am telling you, and if I am lying, let governors come here every weekend, every Thursday. If you can go to the banks in all our 47 counties and see the kind of interest that government county officials are withdrawing. One officer withdrawing 800,000 in the morning, in the afternoon 900,000. You know, they don't go to 1 million because they know there are regulations now. And then another officer withdrawing money. Now, if you are withdrawing all this money, And you're telling them, and MCAs are aware, by the way, because some of the money reach them. They are called, sometimes they are paid 30,000. They are called G for bonding. Can't you ask yourself, what is this bonding session between executive and assemblies in our counties taking place all the time? How come we don't have bonding session between the National Assembly? I'm not saying National Assembly is perfect, and the Senate with the executive. The bottom line is that we have all decided to partake to these bad manners of mismanaging our resources. But your question on Parliament, we will do our best. I am a member of Parliament. Thank God, I never knew that I would be again in this 13th Parliament. But I'm there. It's God who planned that I would be there.
Where did you think you would be?
No, I would today be a cabinet secretary in Raila Odinga's government. But I am here. Your Excellency, I don't know whether in your government you are also considering me for anything. But
you can be sure I'll consider merit when I form the next.
Thank you. But you see, I am now in Parliament, and definitely when this bill comes, we will try to reason out as to whether it will pass the way it is. It will be a sad day for Kenyans.
All right.
But you see, before Governor responds,
suspending sittings.
Can I respond?
Quick, Governor, just allow me. You know, the decisions of this government, the policy decision, in my view, are not informed by any research. For example, this question of housing, it would have been a simple thing. You have got advisors, economists, people to just give even a quick survey. Is this really a need for Kenya, especially those who are working? What does it make sense? You see, any decision really, Trevor, has to be informed by some degree of research or some degree of investigation. To just slap people with this 3%, it doesn't make sense. The formula is haphazard, even enforceability of it. For example, when you look at, say, the finance bill 2023, just to pick one point, you see, the beauty of any taxation anywhere in the world has to have two components: efficiency and equity. Efficiency in terms of enforceability, equity in terms of fairness to everyone. So is it really fair? Those are the fundamental questions we should be asking, and I hope Honorable Mbadi, as a parliamentarian, will bring those issues to, and we'll be tabling our proposal as well, a memorandum, and I'll be more than happy to share with you a copy of it.
All right.
So I don't see efficiency and equity in this finance bill 2023, and that is a basic component of taxing anybody anywhere in the world.
All right, Wamatangi, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on this. MCAs suspending the sittings to demand pay rise in the counties. How will this affect you, and are they justified?
Can I first finish on some of the comments that have been made by my colleagues, and then I'll touch on that quickly. Number one, I think I want to ask my brother, Honorable Mbadi, when he take time to look at this housing, affordable housing concept, then you realize that government is actually not building houses. I'm saying that as a governor in a county that has some of these projects already ongoing. We have one completed, we have one already commissioned, we have a few others that are coming to life. It's government is not building the houses. The houses are being built by private contractors. What government is doing is facilitating a process that will allow those hitherto before could not afford to get houses. That's why we have in that concept, one of the main components of it is what is called social housing. This is intended to address those of the lowest of the low. And then upwards the scale, you can house everyone else. The entire framework is based on that first word, affordability. That's why it's called affordable housing. And so, there is no Ministry of Public Works official you're finding on those sites. There is no government tractors you're finding there. Those are private contractors. What is government doing? Have a discussion with, for example, county governments, all idle public land before. Put it to good use. Other than allowing people to gang up together, go and build slums, get somebody who has the capacity, afford him a few incentives that he is able to build those houses, and support him. Give him even government support as the sales maybe proceed, that he can have a fallback position, but then sell those houses at a price that people can afford. And more so, also give a framework that can allow somebody who cannot put money together in a lump sum continue. That's why you hear this concept of those that are earning a small salary paying a little amount.
Yeah.
There is no problem if, for example, people who are already blessed, like my brother Mbadi, like Daktari here, like myself. You know, I mean, that's why I say. That's why I said you're already blessed. That's why I said you're already blessed, because you are somehow you're paying a mortgage.
Yes.
And you're not living in Kibera or even in one of those worst places. So what we are saying is, in what humanity should think about, that we are all equal in the eyes of God.
Yeah.
When will you bring these people? At least they can go home also, to a decent home where there is running water.
Now it becomes
that is the entire concept. And so,
that's what we say.
Moving forward, I want to urge my brothers that the only thing that we can do, and especially because we have been afforded the platform in law for Honorable Mbadi, social standing, economic well-being, and exposure for Daktari and others, positively contribute to this discussion, to improve on it. But let us see, once we put this plan in place, whether 50 years down the line, you will find Kibera being a beautiful high-rise where people can walk in decent streets, and that is the idea.
But what is
so at the end of the day, there's some other. I may not have time to expound all of it here, but we can have that discussion. I've been the chairman of roads and infrastructure in Parliament for a while. That's why you find that there are so many other exit provisions within that concept, whereby if you've contributed, then you can choose to withdraw your money at one point or the other, so you're not being forced. That is why also that you can also invoke that money will also have earned some interest at one point. If you decide to exit, you can also convert it into a benefit. All those provisions are in there, so you don't have necessarily to be a contributor to end up with a house. But
I have a quick
let me finish.
Before you finish,
But
is this an investment or is it a taxation?
You know, let me answer it in the course of the discussion, because for starters, the concept is clear that let us have our people looking all forward towards providing a solution where people can afford housing. But because you cannot go to an institution and start picking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up to 10, make a provision in law. And I want to implore Honorable Mbadi, a lawmaker of long standing, once that law has been made, or if in the process of making, whatever amendments are good for that law, but the objective is attained, please make those proposals on the floor of the House, and then they can be achieved. You will finally have an end product that can be implemented, including those good ideas that he has, that, okay, make this optional, make that whatever, put it on the floor of the House, and then you can pass the law with the amendments, but then finally to be a good product. But let me finish. Let me finish.
Talk to your MPs to support that amendment.
But I still want him to answer my question.
Let me finish, because you gentlemen have been speaking, the two of you in between yourselves, and I've not had time to answer, because there's an important analogy that Daktari used, which is important, that at one point or the other in the 60s we were at par with Singapore, with even Korea, better, and whatever. Actually, even better. So then what happened? Why did we go wrong? And that is the same answer we have to today when we are discussing about corruption, that we failed to ingrain the character, the ethics, the culture that would get us there. We compromised, and that is why I started with that quote by Lee Kuan Yew, that you get cheap people in your government, then you're going to end up with a cheap government. And that is what we did. We got cheap people in there, so we ended up with a cheap government, and one of the qualities of a cheap government is endemic corruption. That's why you find that today, 50 years down the line, we are still talking about corruption. But the final thing I may want to ask is, what do we do, because we are already in a hole, to stop digging? And I believe that this is where we would be asking questions literally and giving our fair thoughts in critical in a constructive criticism, even what is happening on ground with our government. What do you do? Like, for example, would you say that you'd want to laud what the president did by firing those that he fired in the KEMSA scandal, shuffling some PSs where he thinks things should be done better? If he continues, and I believe that he has got the goodwill and the intent, and then we support. And that's why I wanted to urge my colleagues, and I urge everyone else, at least for this time, let us all put down our arms. We have had them long way before, where we want to fight for our political positions, our political parties, and what we believe in politically. Put down our arms. Let's, for this first 3-4 years, say before politics happens in 2027, that this time we are giving Kenyans what they deserve. Unity of purpose. To your question, to your question on the MCAs, I think with all the debate we have had this morning, it would be very ill-placed for us to have a position that would suggest that any of us, including myself as a governor, would be fomenting, looking for, advocating for a position where we are saying that we want to earn more money when there are people who can't put food on their table. And so I would be urging my colleagues out there in the assemblies, in spite of what Honorable Mbadi was saying, that there are monies that are normally withdrawn. I want to invite you to Kiambu off late, and I would want you to also collect your intel around Kiambu and what is happening under the administration of this governor sitting next to you. That we have changed things, and things are happening completely differently. For the first time, and I want to say it on national TV that I'm receiving requests from some of my colleagues to come and benchmark in Kiambu how we are doing things right now. And that is what I would want to ask, my brothers here and the ones out there, our MCAs, for this time. Let us agree that there is no money to spend, there is no money to waste, there is no money to do things out of the core focus. Change the lives of our people currently.
All right. Let's look at
Trevor, I have a very quick question. I have a very quick question. I think, you started this debate by asking us what is the state of the nation. I think the state of the nation will have to start from when people are seeking to occupy a public office. It must start from us analyzing the promises that we make. Because what is now emerging with this administration is that the promises they made were just lies. And because of that, I want to put Governor Wamatangi on the spot here. There is a friend of mine who has texted me and says, Governor Wamatangi promised the people of Gathiga at Tarmac Road as soon as he is elected. Please ask him what happened as the road was just graded and the machines wrapped up and left. So for us to be able to address the problems of this country, we must also start by a degree of honesty when we are seeking that public office. And I think for me, that's where we find ourselves in the state we are today, where we are struggling, where goalposts are being shifted.
And Wakili, on top of that, honesty. You cheered on William Ruto for campaigning for 5 years. How I wish that what you are saying today, you also told him that time, that we should hold our horses for 4 years, then campaigns come later.
So just if I could talk about that, what Dr. has just said about that Gathiga Road, and it is a good indicator as to what kind of manners or principles should we have as politicians. What that friend of ours and my neighbor is saying is true.
He's actually your neighbor.
He's my neighbor. When we were running for office, there's a road that called Kebiko Gathiga Njadaine Road, and it was being done. It is actually under contract among us on the Western Bypass. And then when those that were in power then in Jubilee heard that Governor Wamatangi now is running on a UDA ticket, they sent the powers that be. They sent the PS, they sent the cabinet secretary then and the DG, and they told them, go and withdraw those machines. They cannot serve anybody who is running on a UDA ticket, and they did withdraw them. But good thing is that I want to answer my colleague is that we have that road on plan, and that is what I want to address largely. That as long as politics continue to happen that way, that you cannot delink yourself from those kind of actions, then we'll still continue to dig deeper into that hole. Of course, the road is going to be done. It's in our plan in the next 2 months.
Yeah.
But how I wish that at the end of the day, and I believe this is not going to happen in our administration, that when Buddy says that he's going to continue to run in ODM, that because then maybe when he's running, I'll be the president.
Yeah.
That I send people to withdraw equipment from his road.
Then when we run out of time here, let's see what people are saying.
When he's running for president, I should also be running for president.
Let's see what you're saying online, then come and get closing remarks really fast before we close this debate on State of the Nation. Let's bring that up. Bob Otieno says, kindly, can Kuru Court let us know what happened to the fallout, Third Way Alliance Kenya, which led to the collapse of Punguza Mizigo initiative, which was a good idea. In fact, BBI borrowed massively from it. Very quickly.
First of all, the fallout in my party, it was a sponsored, attack on the person of me and my leadership, especially from the BBI proponents, and Mheshimiwa Mbadi can confirm that, and also Wamatangi. They actually infiltrated the party, but the Punguza Mizigo did not actually fail. Okay. It's still a very popular issue, right. And I can see they are borrowing a lot from it. Okay. Now, I hear word development, I think something happening, the fight of corruption. So, for me, I have no problem, Trevor, even if they borrow all the ideas in Punguza Mizigo, I only hope that they can actually implement them.
Okay. All right. Let's see what else you're saying here. Dombori says, reflect on past mistakes, but don't dwell on them. Focus on the present and future. Use past mistakes as learning opportunities to grow and improve your mindset. Next. See what else you're saying. Ngekolo Mwalimu says, it's becoming evident that current regime had no proper mechanisms of fixing the economy. They've reneged on almost all campaign promises. Rather than creating more jobs to hustlers, they forced most of them out of jobs. Mama Mboga has become Mama wa kukopa Mboga. Okay. Lilian Sioi, Honorable, says, President Ruto has been very clear on what he wants to achieve, and unlike others, he doesn't forget where he came from. That's the true litmus test of a leader. Okay. Remy Butia says the Ruto administration is keen on turning around the economic situation by taking concerted efforts to ensure proper service delivery, job creation, and the absence of corruption in its administration through sound policy measures. Okay. Sir Nixon says, who does checks and balances to the President's Advisory Committee? Seems like we are reaping sour fruits as a result of incompetent agriculturists. Okay. Kenya Monday says, we are already almost 15% into Ruto's presidency. Kenyans are simply asking for a scorecard, not excuses and more empty promises.
I like that.
Agumba Steve says, the finance bill tabling in Parliament will clearly indicate our august House has nothing to debate on. Why would you still table such an oppressive bill when public outcry is enough to communicate that it's not wanted? The President and his economic advisors must get serious. Odongo Rolex says, we hope as Kenyans this bill to be brought down by our able, caring leaders in the assembly. The burden is overwhelming, but it doesn't agree. But let's see what else. MC Ruma says, what exactly is happening at KEMSA Kenya? Is it a powerhouse of corruption from the COVID millionaires to now mosquito net scam? Is the government serious about fighting corruption? I don't think so. The usual PR by the state, nothing much. Okay. Dumbori again says the current regime's unrealistic approach to the economy is causing more harm than good. The ineffective economic solutions are burdening taxpayers and exacerbating economic wars. It's time for a change that prioritizes realistic and sustainable strategies. But closing remarks on this. Run out of time.
No, thank you very much for hosting us. And I think probably for a very long time we have not been, I've personally not been in this studio. But in my closing remarks, I have just two things to say. One, I don't agree with people blaming advisors to a leader. We didn't elect advisors. Yeah. When I'm elected as a member of parliament, I am elected to deliver to my people. I'm elected to represent them. I'm elected to oversight. I'm elected to legislate. So I cannot again say it's like going to parliament, passing a bill, and when you are asked why, then you say, I have some advisors in the office who told me that bill was good. Then why do we elect you? So Ruto takes the responsibility. Whether he has David Ndii, he has Kamau Thuge, those are his people. What Kenyans want is service delivery from the leadership. But finally, on the issue of tabling the bill, again, finance bill must, as a matter of procedure, come to parliament. I want to maybe correct a misrepresentation or misunderstanding of what I said, that Parliament can sometimes rise to the occasion. And I hope this is one of those times that we'll be called upon to use our conscience. Remember when the 8% on VAT on petroleum products was introduced, first it was 16%, and Parliament rejected it, and the President vetoed it.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, even at the 8%, it was still a tall order to get them. In fact, members who were opposed to the bill missed only 6 members to override the president. And remember, overriding the president is not easy in this country. Okay. The last time we got 2/3 was when we were anchoring the national accord to the constitution. We've never got it again. That day, I saw all the members almost raising the 2/3. So it was on a technicality. I hope the Kenya Kwanza legislature will rise to the occasion and know that now it is about the welfare and the well-being of their people. Okay. It is not about political parties anymore.
All right.
I think for me, Trevor, and first of all, also thanks for hosting us. I think I would like the Jubilee KK administration. You see now I'm even referring to the Jubilee because it's difficult to move away from this Jubilee because they are part and parcel of it. So what I think I would just advise this government is, first of all, take criticism positively. Because at the end of the day, you are the government of the people of Kenya. It's not your government. Government is a property of the populace, not your government. You can only administer certain things. Secondly, please move us away from the politics of 2022. That window is closed now. Okay. And let's not, if you must shift the goalpost, at least give us an explanation why you're shifting the goalposts. Okay. Just like the one that Mheshimiwa Mwatangi has explained why he could not fix that road of Gathiga, because somebody interfered. But I think what I'm seeing now emerging slowly because of the failings of this government, now I'm realizing that actually they had never diagnosed the problem of this country. Even for the last 10 years, President William Ruto was a deputy to Uhuru Kenyatta because he ought to have known, he sat in cabinets, he ought to have known where maybe the Uhuru administration is going wrong. So for 10 years, surely he must have diagnosed the problem. But I can see now a shift saying, oh, this is in the plans, we are planning to do this. So then it means you are lying to us in 2022. And for some of us, maybe from our naivety, Governor, we probably believed, some level of belief, say, okay, these people have been in government for a long time. There is every chance that they could be telling the truth. So let's give them a chance. But now I see the goalposts are changing. We are planning. We are doing this. Give us time. Rigiji comes and say, even if you want to whip us, our buttocks are available for whipping. We don't want to hear those excuses anymore. As we want to move on, give us now a proper trajectory. If things have changed, but at least tell us. What? That is called accountability.
Okay. Thank
you, Trevor. Yeah. I'll close by, forwarding, putting to our public really what the wish of most of us is, that how we wish that our democracy will and should have matured by now. I hope will do so soon that once we are over and done with elections, as my friends have really continuously said, that we can close that window and move forward. But unfortunately, for many reasons, they don't. You can look at the current scenario that we are in, that immediately after the elections, after a few days, and after a verdict by our Supreme Court and others, that we are back to the streets, courtesy of some thoughts of some of the key political leaders, that it is good to have an election, have votes counted, a winner pronounced, back to the Supreme Court, a winner again upheld, and then you go back to the streets, and you're saying, yes, it is not over until it's over. And that's exactly, I believe, what they're speaking about. How I wish that this would be made a reality, because then you have a window then open into the new administration for when you engage those that you competed with what Dr. Okot is talking about, constructive criticism as you move forward, because this country belongs to all of us. The consequences, Trevor, whether we like it, are suffered by all of us. Yeah. That Mama Mboga you hear we're talking about, who is suffering now, is not from Kenya Kwanza, is not from ODM, is a Kenyan. And this poverty cuts across, these problems cut across. But unfortunately, there are some of us that have been there in this political game for too long, that we have hardened our hearts and our heads and our minds, that we no longer see anything else other than our way, me, myself, and only my way and my benefits. And that's what I hope would eventually appeal to most of us, that we let Kenyans live for this intermittent period before again we go back to the arena in 2027.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen, for making time this
Are you suggesting that we are going back to the streets?
We didn't talk about the bipartisan talks, but I know they'll continue next week, so we'll talk about them then. Yes. Right now, coming up next is Cooking Tips with Willis Bazuraburu. Right, bye for now.